Hello, welcome everyone to our panel webinar discussion today on transformational leadership insights from our Stanford Executive Program alumni. We're so excited to have you all here for this next hour together. Our time will begin with an introduction on leadership by Professor Sarah Soule, and then we'll transition to our panel discussion with 4 distinguished alum of the Stanford Executive Program. This is our flagship program for Stanford GSB Executive Education. I would now like to welcome the Mortgage Professor of Organizational Behavior and incoming Dean of the Stanford Graduate School of Business, Professor Sarah Soule. Sarah, we're honored to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Angela, and I'm so delighted to be here too with you all, and welcome everybody. We're very excited to be hosting this today, and I wanted to just start by saying a little bit about SEP, about the Stanford Executive Program, and because I have had the pleasure of witnessing firsthand the transformational impact that we have in this program. And as you will see on the panel today, the panelists are a true testament to the power of the GSB experience. Here at the GSB, we consider leadership to be an honor and a privilege. And as I step into my new leadership role at the GSB, at this particularly pivotal time for higher education, at least here in the United States, I've been reflecting on the model of leadership that we teach and research here at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. This is a model which is backed in research, as well as I think you'll see when I give you a brief overview of it, something that resonates a lot with most of our leaders, both our leaders that come to our in-person programs, as well as leaders who are part of our online programs. And we sort of put together this model a few years ago when we really wanted to take stock of the courses and the experiences that we provide people when they come to campus or when they come to one of our programs online. But we also wanted to make sure in taking stock that we at Stanford were teaching a research-backed model. So we came up with 5 basic kind of leadership competencies that are part of this leadership model. I'll tell you what each of these are, and then I know that when you are able to hear from our alumni participants today, you will see how these competencies are reflected in their stories and in their journeys. So the first competency is self-awareness. This is being able to be in touch with your own values and your emotions, and to understand how those values and emotions are impacting how you show up as a leader, how you show up for your team. And it also involves thinking about and knowing how others perceive you as well. So there's sort of an internal and an external dimension to self-awareness. The second competency is perspective taking. That is, how well are you able to understand both cognitively and emotionally how other people are feeling, doing, and experiencing the world? Sometimes when we talk about perspective taking, we say, are you able to step into the shoes of another person? The problem, though, with that kind of analogy is that humans are actually terrible about imagining somebody else's life and experience because we have our own biases, which come from our own life and experiences. So oftentimes, rather than perspective taking, we say it's really important to engage in perspective getting, which means actively trying to understand others by listening and by asking good questions. The third competency is awareness of the context. And that, if you think about a concentric set of circles, you can imagine the context that is most immediate, your physical space, the culture of your team, the culture of your unit or organization, the then greater socio-political and economic environment in which you are leading, and perhaps even the global political environment as well. So we can think about context as most proximate to least proximate in a sense. And understanding and being able to anticipate changes in those environments is incredibly important, but also understanding how you as a leader can impact your environment is also important. The fourth competency that we talk about is decision making and understanding our own biases and how those biases come into play when we're trying to make or take decisions, and thinking about structured frameworks by which we can use to help us to make better, sounder decisions. And then finally, we talk about holistic communications. And by holistic communications, we mean not just how we present, how we speak, how we persuade others, but also how our nonverbal communication can undermine or enhance what we are saying or writing and what we're doing. But we also refer to the ability to listen, which of course overlaps with perspective getting, as I've already said. So those are the 5 basic competencies, and I'm sure that as you go through the webinar today, you're going to see that these are interrelated, and they also mutually reinforce one another in really interesting ways. So as you're about to hear, you are going to hear from leaders who are especially good at navigating the world today. Our program, our Stanford Executive Program, embraces this model through this design and through its design, as well as through our goal of inspiring transformational leaders. So over the years, I have been honored to teach in the program, and I've been inspired by the leadership stories of our SEP alum, and I look forward to hearing from others today to tell their stories. So with that, it is my absolute great pleasure to introduce our panel moderator, Annabelle Williams. Annabelle became a good friend of mine back in 2019 when she completed the Stanford Executive Program. And I will say that over the last year since she completed that, it has been such an incredible pleasure and honor to watch Annabelle lead and watch how she transforms others through her own leadership. With that, Annabelle, I welcome you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and hello, everybody. It is my honour to be the moderator of today's panel. And speaking of transformational leadership, congratulations, Sarah, on your inspired appointment as the next dean of the GSB. It's an incredible appointment. I know we were discussing with the panelists before we started this how we all feel so uplifted by that appointment, and we think it's the perfect choice. So congratulations to you. You're a wonderful and transformative leader. I am, as I said, honoured to moderate this panel. I'm going to briefly introduce myself and then our 3 panelists. I completed the SEP in 2019. My background is kind of broad. A very long time ago, feels like an age ago, I was a swimmer. I'm a Paralympic swimmer. I competed in 2 Paralympic Games. My first was Beijing 2008 and my second in London 2012. I'm also a lawyer. I was a mergers and acquisitions lawyer at a firm, and then I went in-house and was a lawyer for the Australian Olympic Committee for a number of years before I took my first maternity leave and decided to do the SEP program. I remember right before I applied, I was pregnant when I was accepted, and I remember a friend saying, "But what are you going to do with the baby when you do the SEP program?" And I had no experience with children, and I said, "Well, I guess I'll just take her and put her in the pram and she'll sleep for the duration of the sessions," which of course is not what happened. So it was a big family effort on my part to do the SEP program. My whole family came with me, and it was truly life-changing for me. I remember Bill Barnett, the director of the program, said that the SEP program can change the trajectory of your life and your career. And it was certainly the case for me. I set up my own business right after SEP. I do a lot of corporate speaking all over the world. I'm also a television reporter now in Australia. I do sports reporting and hosting, and I'm also an incredibly proud mum of 2 girls. So that's a little bit about me, and I am now delighted and hope that my panelists will turn on their camera as I introduce them, to introduce 3 incredible people. Deirdre Quanstrom leads Microsoft's AI-enhanced learning portfolio and education product team. She serves as a director on the board of a nonprofit partnership between Mojang and UN Habitat called the Block by Block Foundation, and is a founding partner and advisor at Reaction, a social impact VC fund. Previously, Deirdre led product and engineering for Minecraft Education, Minecraft China, and Mojang Studios accessibility and social impact programs. My oldest daughter now thinks Deirdre invented Minecraft. She started the program to bring the video game Minecraft to mainstream education, which now reaches millions of students and educators around the world. Welcome, Deirdre. My second panelist is Muge, and Muge is the Group CFO at Embracer Group. Embracer is a global group of creative and entrepreneurial businesses in PC, console, mobile, and board games and other related media. The group has over 900 owned or controlled franchises. And Muge is an incredibly experienced financial executive with broad experience in all aspects of accounting, auditing, fiscal, legal, and financial management on an international level. Welcome, Muge. My final panelist is Dimitri. And Dimitri and I were actually in the same SEP cohort in 2019. And Dimitri is the founder and CEO of Flow Health, which is Europe's first femtech unicorn. Flow Health raised more than $200 million in Series C investment from General Atlantic at a $1 billion plus valuation in July 2024. I have done some work with Dimitri and Flow in the past when it was headquartered in Belarus. The headquarters is now in London, and I know that journey would have taken a huge amount of very bold leadership. So I'm very much looking forward to speaking to all of you. We've got about 45 minutes or so for this discussion. Now, I'm going to ask each of you the same question. Deirdre, I'm going to start with you. I would like you to imagine one of your direct reports at work is at a dinner party. You're not there. They're at a dinner party. And they are asked by someone to describe you and your leadership style. What do you think they'd say? Or perhaps what do you hope they'd say?
Yeah, great. First, thanks for the introduction, Annabelle. You know, what I hope they would say is the clarity that I bring to the team and to our organization. We're all operating in a place of so much change and so much uncertainty right now. And so what I hope to do and what I hope comes through in my leadership is just bring that clarity of vision of why we're here and then how each person on the team can contribute to that.
Amazing. How about you, Muge?
Thanks, Annabelle. I think they would be saying that I'm tough, yet I'm very directional, caring. It's really that balance, being very tough, demanding, persuasive. I think they would say that if she has something in mind, she'll convince us. But at the same time, she'll be there for us.
And how about you, Dimitri?
I was preparing for this question and I tried to be objective, and I have my anonymous feedback, my 360 review with like maybe 100 of different opinions and anonymous opinions. And I uploaded this review to ChatGPT and asked, like, please describe his style based on this anonymous review. And I read several lines of it. Dmitry Gursky exemplifies a visionary yet humble leadership style, combining ambition with pragmatic, data-driven mindset. Known for being calm, thoughtful, and hands-on, Dmitry is described as having high learning agility and strong ability to evolve facilitator. And more flattering, but at least it's subjective because I uploaded anonymous feedback.
I think that is flattering. I'd like to work with any one of you. How would you describe, and Dimitri, perhaps I'll start with you. Maybe we can ask ChatGPT, but how would you define transformational leadership?
Honestly, I don't like to use very vague and grandiose terms, because usually it's really difficult to understand essence and act based on them, and I'm trying to boil down it to the essence and what concretely it means and what is leadership. Let's even like cross out like a transformational, like to be clear, and what's leadership and what's significant in leadership. And my opinion that the most significant in leadership is to provide direction and clarity and example, ultimately, because people, they need to understand like why people, they hate ambiguity, and the people, they want to feel like some kind of that leader knows and they
That's very interesting.
then should be confident. Yeah, they should follow such like a leader. And then yeah, and also it's like a leader should be kind of like at least like a, I would not say like a role model, because it was for me interesting moment, probably one of the most memorable moments in our education in Stanford. Maybe you remember this moment when like a professor asked like, please describe what traits like a CEO, a leader should have. And the audience like started to provide like a traits like skillful, like empathic, smart, like bold, like visionary. And maybe in 10 minutes, the professor put like 100 of different traits to this like a desk. And then he said that probably even Jesus Christ was worse than this like a leader you describe. And but what was even kind of like maybe even more difficult, because like many of these traits were contradicting to itself. It means like kind of like it's almost kind of like you should have absolutely like all traits in the world, half of them to contradict to each other, and it's what people to expect from you. Of course, you can't be like that, but at least you should be good enough. Like
Yes, I do. I remember that moment clearly, and I think that that's so true, Deirdre. Yes, I wonder. You know, transformational leadership is such a bold term, and you are, of course, a transformational leader. But has that shaped your approach to leading, or what have been the main drivers for you on your leadership journey?
Yeah, I think there's two parallel journeys. There's the journey in and leading the team towards a destination and bringing in some of that context and those skills that Sarah talked about at the beginning of, moving towards our goal and hitting those milestones. There's also the journey of the individuals on the team and their own path towards leadership. And then for me, as I, continue to develop those skills as we're faced with new challenges. And so I really see those parallel journeys and certainly connected, but it's a little bit like we see in video games. A great video game has, kind of that journey where you move in progression through the game, and then you as the player are also developing skills that go back into playing that game and reaching those final goals.
That's a great analogy, and I'm aware that there's multiple things. The three of you are very connected in a lot of ways in the work that you do. I feel like I guess what connects you, all three companies, Microsoft, Flow Health, Embracer, operate in these digital ecosystems that leverage AI and data, but also deal with lots of challenges. Privacy, ethics, market influence. There's been so much change recently. Muge, have you got an example you could share with us of a time where you, I guess, you had a bold vision and you implemented it, and how you brought others along the journey, what that looked like?
Well, the CFO job by itself includes a lot of technicalities and the complex things where if you wanted or if you didn't pay attention, it's very easy to lose people, to fool people almost. It is also very easy not to make the best use of it in its value creation. So the vision I've always had as a CFO is no matter what you do, it's all about value creation and how you create that. And in that, there is the people dimension, obviously. So we can talk about, as you mentioned, the AI, industrial changes, companies' challenges, and so on. But it's all about how you create that value for a common purpose, how you drive the people around there for the most important element being communication, in a sense. But then how you do that? My company is amongst the disruptive ones. We have gone through like in very, very little period of time from 100 million to over 4 billion euro company, hundreds of acquisitions, hundreds of games. I'll just talk about Lord of the Rings acquisition, so which I very directly managed, and that was a big decision because it was the establishment of a transmedia strategy. So it was a big change, which created a lot of question marks. So there was a lot of education onboarding, because if people don't believe you, it isn't because you're right. You'll just stay on your own if you're right, kind of. So I shall say it was down to basics, but a lot of communication to simply just convince, educate, align people to create that power. And once you do that, obviously that power itself gives you something beyond your imagination.
That's very interesting. You know, yes, bringing people along the journey is one aspect of it. And Deirdre, I'm going to come back to you. You mentioned that you have a leadership journey, but then also all your direct reports and other people in the organization have theirs. How much responsibility do you, or how deliberate, I guess, are you about succession planning, making sure the people coming up underneath you are prepared to be the best possible leaders they can be?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of a responsibility, but also really tapping into each individual's strengths and potential. It opens up so much. And so we're all operating in this time of, a lot of change and transformation, and, the technology, the tools that we have available. And so being able to find each person's strengths, what they can contribute to that, bringing in, certainly diverse perspectives and experiences as we're really inventing new ways of doing things. As we look at AI, we're operating in a world where, there's real fear in the education space where I operate of, is AI going to take people's jobs? How are we going to use this most effectively for teaching and learning? And so as we tackle those, sort of specific technical challenges, bringing in people with strong perspectives, experience, helps form the overall path that we're going. And on the other side, as we're navigating through a lot of change, periods of uncertainty, many people are bought into that mission. And part of getting that buy-in is really anchoring people in the why that we're doing it, and then empowerment. And that empowerment helps just make everything stronger, builds that commitment, and really makes those learning and iteration cycles much faster and much more powerful.
Dimitri, your journey has been quite remarkable for a number of different reasons. Flow Health, you created a company that is now a unicorn, Europe's first femtech unicorn, which is a remarkable achievement. And you've done it in the backdrop of some very difficult circumstances. I mentioned at the beginning that your headquarters was in Belarus. You moved during the war to London. Most of your staff, or a lot of your staff, were based in Belarus, and they moved as well. I can't imagine how many various skill sets that would have required you to navigate, but remain a humble, strong, steadfast leader. I guess, how were you able to create that? Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, I guess? And then what skills do you think it took for you to navigate that path?
It was a very difficult situation when the war started 3 years back. And it was difficult because we had to relocate 75% of our employees with families quite urgently. Urgently means in several days, because of several risks, including that Belarus would engage to the war and men would be drafted and the borders would be closed. And what made this job more complex is that at this moment, like, all air flights were stopped, or like all borders were closed, like all transportation was closed, and it was difficult even to do, like even like Vilnius, where we have now most of our people, is 200 kilometers from Minsk. It was impossible to cross this border. And it was difficult to organize because, like, just like logistically, because people, they didn't have visas, they didn't we didn't have time, like, and we organized flights to Armenia, to Turkey, and then I had agreement with government in Lithuania that people would arrive without visas and they would provide temporarily papers. But what was the most difficult for people? Could you imagine that you need to make like a decision and take your family and just like leave everything behind in 3 days? And many people, they left 3 years back, and they never came back, and they decided to do that just in several days. And among 300 employees we had that time in Belarus, like less than 10% decided not to relocate, and the rest of people followed us. And it was much higher rate than other companies in the same circumstances had in region. And I think we had much higher rate because up to this moment we had developed like a very significant trust with our employees because of our previous steps and behavior, and they had trust to follow our ask and follow us like in this journey, like take everything, like all life behind previous life and move like to new country, like and I did the same before, but it was the same, and because we had instability in Belarus in 2020, and I also decided in 2 days, and I left in 2 days, and I have never be back, never. And like since that and that moment, I didn't understand that I would never be back. That like everything I had, like and everything I created in 38 years of life, I will just like lose like forever. But it's life, and but then people followed, and now we. It was difficult, like business harmed a lot. It was very expensive, many millions of dollars, many millions, and but company like reorganized, and now it's much more successful than it used to be, much bigger. Like it's growing very fast, and it means that we saved company, and we transformed this company to unicorn. And but it was the most significant was to have trust, and trust was developed by years of work before.
It seems like, I mean, it's a remarkable journey, Dimitri, and I think you had, trust, but of your employees, they trusted you completely. But also, I think there's something about you that is very capable of dealing with a huge amount of pressure and complex environments. And I imagine this is exactly the same for, Müge and Deirdre. I wonder, Müge, could you share with us, you manage large, complex environments, in an evolving marketplace, and the environments can be very high pressure. You mentioned you've just gone through an IPO. Those things are, high pressure situations. And you manage the pressure that's on the team, but also the pressure that's on you personally. How do you manage stress, burnout, and how do you prioritize your mental health and well-being as a leader?
I drink a lot of wine. That was a French answer. Okay, I'll try to be more orthodox. But actually, that made me think of the first day I had at SEP, where one of the exercise was the 3 things in common. And surprisingly, one of them was wine that we had come up with. And that makes me thinking about humor. So at tough times, it's all about the relationship. It's all about the trust we talked about. So surprisingly, I used humor a lot during those occasions. I also saw being vulnerable, showing that you're human, that you understand, that there's empathy, and that you've been in their shoes. It also helps inspire, it helps convince, it helps persuade, it helps kind of, okay, I'm not happy, but I understand. So it makes you more human. So that's something I really see a lot of benefits in creating common feelings, emotions. I think it shouldn't be a taboo. On the contrary, as leaders, the more human we are, the stronger it makes us. There is almost like an adverse effect that we can think of. And as we said, it's also communication, and I like to say time spent, because in many people's minds, you're very busy, you're almost unreachable, you're an idol, way more than what you are, who you are, and what you think yourself. So people care and value immensely the real time you spend with them. And at hard times, when they know that you are choosing to spend your time with them, trying to explain, it has a meaning. So I try to actually give my time and energy.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it seems like that's sorry, Deirdre, I was just going to, and I would like to know your answer as well, but it does seem like at this particular moment in time, when there's so much that is pulling the world apart, us all apart, focusing on the common things and what brings us together as a counterbalance to that is more important than ever. Deirdre?
Yeah, I was just going to add that resonates so much, everything from the wine to those moments of high stress, and some of the roles that we have can feel a bit isolated and lonely. And so the peer and mentor relationships are incredibly valuable. And sometimes it is connecting over food or wine, and sometimes it is talking through an issue, even if the folks that you're talking to don't know anything about it, just having that connection, that feeling of, oh, others have gone through similar things, or the act of talking through it and sort of having people ask you questions about it can be incredibly clarifying. And so that's something I certainly got from the SEP experience and that network and the connection with the folks from the program. But just, in those moments of stress, those, really critical times, having these, amazing peer community is really valuable to me.
Yeah. I also concur about the wine as well. And, I guess what that brings to mind is I guess the interplay between and the importance of sponsors and mentors. How do you each feel about that? Perhaps, Dimitri, perhaps I'll go to you with this one. I've always thought a mentor is somebody, and I think I heard this somewhere or read it somewhere, where a mentor is somebody who you would tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, because they're there to help you navigate through your career and even things outside of your career. And a sponsor is somebody who you want to tell the good, and the good, because they're the person who has a seat at the table when decisions are being made about you and your progression. I guess, is that how you see it? And how important is that at Flow Health? Is that something that you're really deliberate about as a leader?
Yeah, maybe I will just give my way to reduce stress in critical situation, because maybe it's a bit different than other participant shared. My way to reduce stress is by by eliminating ambiguity, and I'm eliminating ambiguity by writing down scenarios like for next 3 years, like for long time, and I'm describing what would happen in 3, 5 scenarios, like good, bad, terrible. And then when you start to analyze them, in most of cases, you would conclude that pretty much nothing really terrible would happen. And you just and then you conclude that in most of cases, you're just worried by something emotionally, but it's not so rational, because when you start thinking rational, in most of cases, almost everything is manageable. And it's a very good way to reduce stress in most of situations when you have plan or several plans, usually several plans, because it depends on how it goes for a longer time. And yeah,
Dimitri, can I add just to that point? That's a very analytical way of approaching it, and a very measured way. I tend to have it's similar, and I don't know if others have this, but then I'd like to hear your second part to the answer, Dimitri, too. I have this thing that I call the catastrophe scale, and I implemented it when I was an athlete. And it goes from 0 to 100, and 0 is something that happens that's no big deal. You spill a cup of coffee or something, and 100 is something that's really catastrophic, like being diagnosed with a terminal illness, for example. And every time a challenge presented itself throughout my career, I've always thought, where does this land on my catastrophe scale? And it gives you a moment to pause and to realize that most things are actually pretty low down on most things are not a catastrophe at all. And so it's a I guess slightly less sophisticated way that I try to de-escalate pressure as well. But go ahead, I'd love to hear your second part to the answer.
Yeah, and talking about mentors, what has worked the best for me, I recently joined a group called 10xCEO. It's kind of club of CEOs of companies of similar with hundreds of millions in revenue, and we meet each quarter in person for 2 days, and we discuss problems of each other, and it's very structured. We have a long, big document, big table. We describe current state of business, the biggest problem now, and then several hours of discussion, and it's very well moderated. But it works really well because you talk with people with very similar experience and with very similar status, and in safe space. and it was the most helpful experience like I had. I had like mentors, I had coaches, but this club of peers is the most valuable, and it also resembles a bit this experience with Stanford Executive Program, because you're also surrounded by people at similar stage, and most of people at similar stage, because this program is like for executives or for kind of CEOs. It means like you're surrounded by peers, and it's you really may talk about things you worry about with people who may understand, because sometimes like coaches, business coaches, they like kind of a bit theoretical, and you really need to be inside business to understand that. Theoretically, I may like describe everything, like I may advise very smartly, but practically it's execution, and real people is much more difficult than like this like a theoretical like by book approach.
Well, how about Miguel? How about for you? How has mentorship and sponsorship played a part in your career, and do you pay that back now as well?
It's very interesting. When I was at SEP, we had a moment where we could come up with if we wanted to bring up any topic, and together with my friend Jing, we wanted to talk about trailblazing women. And I still remember what I said during that intro speech. I explained the reasons why I wanted to tackle that topic, but one thing was, if I am where I am, who I am today, it is also thanks to people who influenced me, who contributed in becoming who I am today. It was my way of thinking. And it is so true, because just like having a purpose in creating an impact on others' lives, we have been impacted, we have been influenced, we have been helped, supported by many people down the way as well. And we have talked about the trust. It is so important to build trust, we said. But when you're a leader, around you, there aren't many people you can speak up without fear, without filters. And actually, SEP was also a place for me where I found that trust, and those mentors you're talking about, actually, I just feel myself in safety. I feel like I can talk to them because I know they will be caring. So that trust base is priceless, and what I get from them is something that has really been directional in the way I'm trying to also influence some others. And when I have a team member who needs to, for diverse reasons, quit the company, and in that closing speech there is something dedicated to you, and then you receive something else dedicated to you, it's a lot more meaningful than whatever financial or title you can get elsewhere. So it's just that thank you, just that impact, the difference you can create. So it matters a lot to me, and you realize that circle of trust is very narrow for leaders after all. So finding that people, when you're a mom and you're a dad, it isn't necessarily your spouse who knows you from all aspects the best. As a colleague, that will be more professional, but maybe lack some intimacy on the personal side. When it comes to your mentor, the person you trust, that balance of knowing you personally and professionally and making the right use has a lot of meaning.
And it's much worse for CEOs, because CEO is the most lonely job in the world. You don't have peers. You have bosses, you have shareholders and board, and you have your reports, and you're alone. And because of that, like CEOs, they should find like a peers among other CEOs, because you don't have peers in organizations naturally, and just bosses and reports.
I'm often asked to speak at conferences on topics like grit and resilience and growth mindset. And I remember at one point in time, I remember sitting down thinking, what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to bounce back. And I guess the more resilient you are, the faster you can bounce back. And I thought, what is it that makes people resilient? And I think that it's the ability to exist in a very inclusive and kind environment, because if you face a challenge, you can bounce back faster, sort of irrespective of the result. And even if you fail, and I'm going to get onto failure in a moment, you feel safe and supported. And I also sit on a few boards of directors now, and I have a bit of a bird's eye view of organizations, and I'm very interested in sort of these sorts of topics: resilience, grit, growth mindset, kindness. And I think, there is one thing that I think is universally true, that the best employees, the most innovative, the hardest working, the best team players, they are usually the people who have been nurtured and mentored and encouraged. They're sort of the ones who have had kindness extended to them. And I think that creating that environment is sometimes really challenging for leaders, because as you say, Dimitri, it can be lonely and perhaps it's not something that's valued by others, but I think it's really important. Deirdre, what's your view about that, and mentorship and sponsorship?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned being on boards, and I think there's this concept of a personal board of directors that I think can be really valuable to think about. Dimitri mentioned a coach, and so, the role of a coach coming in maybe at specific times to work through a specific problem or skill, having mentors sort of within your day-to-day environment that can give you feedback and help with that self-awareness, having mentors who are outside of your day-to-day that you can, talk about. I think you mentioned earlier, Annabelle, the sort of good, bad, and the ugly of just, oh my gosh, this is really messy and I need to have a frank conversation that's not, sort of in the day-to-day of what I'm working on. And then that role of sponsor on your board of directors as well, that can be someone that can sort of more help in sort of career progression and leadership journey. And so I think that's a really, valuable concept to think about, of what's that sort of portfolio of folks that help and support you in your business challenges and your career journey. And then, I love what Muge talked about around paying back the sort of that mentoring and support that we benefit from. And so Microsoft has a program called Career Jams, and it's an opportunity for early in career people to set up an appointment with a more senior, more experienced person. And I love those sessions. I generally will do maybe 8 or 10 of those a year. And number one, I feel really old when I do them, because it's generally much younger people, kind of my kids' age, and they're asking about my career, and then, looking sort of with wide-eyed amazement at the different things I've done. So I feel like I'm like 100 years old. But I also learn so much from those. I learn what, some of perhaps what the early in career folks who are joining my team, what their expectations are, what's working well for them, what's not. Hearing their perspectives on, just things like brand and product and what's really important. And so I think there's definitely a role in supporting new folks who are coming into the workforce, helping them connect with and sort of benefit from some of the experiences I've had. But I personally find I get a lot from that as well.
Yeah, and I think when you have to just describe your problem in a structured way, like to somebody, it's like you resolve your problem like for 90%, because
Yes.
like in most of cases, like you just don't have like a really like structure of the problem in your head. You just have like some mess in your head, and when you need to describe that like to somebody else, and when you describe that in structured way, you like for 99% you would solve your problem by yourself, but you just need this environment and you structure your problems. You may do that by writing, but you should be really disciplined to do that in writing. And with a mentor or with peer, it's simpler. But then you will solve the problem yourself, because you will just structure it.
Yeah.
This is great. Can you please, the three of you, get together and write a book of all these snippets of invaluable advice for leaders? That's, it's fascinating to hear these sort of tidbits. I guess I mentioned I was going to ask you about failure, and I might ask each of you to reflect on a time in which you feel like you failed. Briefly, what was the failure? How did it feel? And then how did you bounce back from it? And what did you learn? Perhaps, Muge, I'll start with you.
Okay. We tend to think for leaders that their life is more full of successes than failures. I tend to disagree. Actually, I've had a lot of failures, and they made me feel less scared. But I still remember, like yesterday, my first failure at work. Oh, it hurt so much because I didn't see it coming at all. I was the outperforming star, promotions coming in, opportunities coming in before even I have the chance to or the time to ask for a new one. So like always going faster than my age and so on. And we faced this organizational crisis where literally the entire team was about to leave. and it would have been about me. It was addressed as such. A big shock, and I was like, okay, it's just, I mean, I can't believe this. I'm one of the best managers, and like, how can this be possible? That was a big shock. That was a big moment of disappointment with myself, being caught unprepared, not necessarily accepting that, not agreeing with that, a lot of emotions. And suddenly almost that star that you feel like, that powerful lady you feel like miserable and shit. You no longer hang on to those qualities as if like you become a different person. So I think I was lucky too. There's always been a bit of luck besides hard work or wisdom, especially as far as my experiences are concerned. The mentorship we were talking about, that circle of trust, people who really know you, people who want your well-being. As much as I was surprised, as much as I was disappointed, as much as I was sad, I cried a lot. I said, I don't deserve this. They don't deserve this too, because I cared those people. So I said, if I'm the manager, I need to take the hit. Probably it's me to change this, especially if they are wrong. I got to show them. So I talked to few people, 2 people at the time who knew me. I was very transparent. I tried to express the situation as almost as pessimistic, as transparent as possible. I told them that I really cared very much and I wanted this to change, and I would be ready to do whatever it takes. And that I had no ego about that, because it's really the people, and we do mistakes. And if this is the price I have to pay so as to secure the coming 20, 30, 40 years of my career, because I love my job, be it. So I took it from a positive side. I really took it from a positive side. I said, I fell, but I will stand up and I will be stronger. So that mindset itself is key. Finding that energy is key, but who surrounds you, what you do at that moment of time is key as well. So I worked, I did my homework. I still remember the moment I wanted to address initially all of them at the same time. I started by apologizing, and I think they really felt how genuine it was, how much it came from the heart. I told them how much it mattered to me and that I would do everything. So if they kind of are going through this, but if I am right, if they would like to trust me once again. And it made us a very solid team. That team, after decades later, some of them I'm still contacted for reference checks, very good relationships. We do talk about that. Some of them tell me actually the lesson I kind of gave them by demonstrating that attitude. It brought me a lot.
Wow, what a brave leader. What an incredibly brave thing to have done. I also agree completely with your point about, people feel like leaders or people who have had success, it's just been one success after another. I, am acutely aware of the fact that as an athlete, people look at, I won 1 gold medal, and people look at that. But I say to people, I raced thousands of times in my career and I won 1 gold medal. I lost so many more times than I won. And it's the as you said, the mindset you have to bounce back from that and to think, no, I'm going to use this as a learning opportunity. How can I grow from here? Thank you so much for sharing. Deirdre, how about you? Do you have an example?
Yeah, I can share something on the product side where, it's really a failure in meeting the customer expectation and also failing the team. And we were getting ready to launch Minecraft education. It was on the eve of the sort of big PR announce, and I did kind of a final check-in with stakeholders and realized I had missed, some check-ins, and we weren't aligned on the approach we were taking and which platforms we were making that available on, and had to make a quick pivot. And I really felt like I'd let down the team. There were some tears on the, on the flight to the PR event, but we rallied and, made some quick adjustments. But, on the customer side, I still have a picture on my phone, and this is kind of going back maybe 10 years, of a teacher at an event who was so frustrated with this pivot that we had made. And I'm talking to her on the trade show floor, and I said, let me take a picture of badge because I can't resolve this for you right now, but I want to follow up with you after. And I have a picture of her badge, but I also got her face in the background. And I really remember that. And it's something that I, sort of in sort of pivoting and learning from that failure, I bring in the importance of bringing stakeholders along, and the importance of, in those moments of when you're so enthusiastic and you feel like you're on a great path and the team's really excited, that there's, always sort of the goals that you need to achieve and the metrics and the milestones, and the sort of in a company like Microsoft, a lot of internal stakeholders, and then there's that tension of the customer and what the customer wants. And so trying to balance that enthusiasm for building great products and great product innovation with, what are some of those other constraints that we have to operate within? So I have those sort of, like two pictures of like my own feeling of like, oh my gosh, I missed this. And then that customer who felt, I had that feeling of we really let that customer down. And so it's something I bring into all of our product conversations. It's something that's, sort of always going on in my head of like, it's really fun to build products. It's really fun to be like sort of on the cutting edge. And we also carry responsibility. We carry responsibility to the team to make sure we're doing that in a way that's sustainable and durable. We carry a responsibility to the customers to make sure we're not over-promising, and we can really, bring things that they can use and that can really celebrate. So, I agree. It's that being able to take that moment of that, sort of punched in the gut feeling and turn that into okay, what can we do right now? And then what can we learn from that, and sort of make everything stronger. Oh, looks like we may have lost Annabelle for a second.
Annabelle is
Dimitri,
frozen.
yeah,
We got like a real fail in real time. But
yeah.
like from my side, I would want to add that the biggest success I got resulted directly from failures. And why? Because all these failures or almost calamities, they forced me to change my life drastically. These calamities almost burnt my bridges, and although it was like a huge reflection about everything, and although it was like nothing to lose, and when nothing to lose, you just may change everything. And for example, Flow, like we had many companies, but for example, Flow was born as a result of huge crisis in our business in Belarus and Russia in 2014 because of Crimea crisis. It was practically destroyed because of devaluation of ruble in 3 times. And we almost like lost everything, and we just like combined like the rest of our resources and decided to build like something international, and this way was born Flow. And without this calamity, quite possible that we would be like relaxed, and the flow would not happen. And it wasn't a single case in my life. Like all big successes were resulted from huge changes in life, and these huge changes in life would not be possible to be done without these calamities. And because of that, I'm very grateful to these huge failures I had, because they forced me for change.
That's amazing. Sorry, I lost internet connection for a moment there, but Deirdre, to touch on what you said, it seems like from that failure, you learned to have almost this lens over every decision you made moving forward to make sure that every aspect of the business was accounted for. And so that you wouldn't, you sort of didn't miss big gaps. You made sure that you brought everyone along with the journey. And Dimitri, that's incredible, to feel like, to know that it's possible for the biggest possible crisis imaginable to happen, but out of it can, one of the most successful companies in the world can be born, is a remarkable mindset to have. I always find in times of crisis and challenge, and I've had a million failures in my life, that even if you don't know what the path forward is, knowing that there is a path is comforting as well. Now, we've only got a couple more minutes, And what I'd love to do, I'm going to go around each of you quickly. I want you to answer 2 questions in one. This is about the impact of SEP on you and your leadership. I guess, what was the most insightful thing that you gained from SEP and how have you implemented it? And secondly, what was the most unexpected takeaway from the program? Dimitri, I might start with you.
Maybe the biggest learning I got from this program, and it was 6 years back, and when like a company was much smaller, and I was still in Belarus, and I didn't have like my current prospects. It was my observation that all the successful executives, they were just people, the same people. I didn't see any genius among 200 participants of this program, but the single difference I saw among these people, what made them successful, was diligence and discipline. They were much more diligent and disciplined than average cohort of people. And they observed that, like, for example, they were like drinking up to night, but then half of them were waking up 6 a.m. like for training, and they were always preparing like home tasks. I had never seen that in my school or university or in work, and I definitely learned that the most significant trait in life is discipline and diligence from that, and there are no geniuses. Like it's and what how it helped me. I wish I had opportunity to participate in this program now when I have much more experience and prospects. It would be even more useful than that time. But that time it helped me to create kind of to get this like a skeleton structure of knowledge. Like I had MBA before, but really like we had courses about pretty much everything, and at the end of this program I got this kind of like a skeleton of knowledge, and then I just was able to use this like a skeleton of knowledge. I just like the biggest problem that it's unknown when you just don't know that something exists. When you get this like skeleton of knowledge, like even if you don't remember, at least you know that you should look in this direction, and then it's simple to find information. And this skeleton of knowledge was the biggest outcome from this program for me.
And how about you, Muge?
One of the most impactful, insightful thing was the mindfulness, I shall say. It was really not losing what's important, what's really important, the purpose with the inner well-being. It really clarified for me what I want to do, how I'd like to shape my career or even my life, how listening more to my heart, being more conscious of my decisions we take and the decisions we don't take with the time passing. So it made me a lot more conscious and mindful, and give more importance to my heart. Like time is ticking, but this time not to get a task done or to run after almost not important things. And I shall say the most surprising or unexpected thing was seeing me crying so much. I still remember some of the classes, Laskins, the first session, between mindfulness and meditation, and where, you close your eyes, and when you open up, more than half of the class, we were in tears. And I cried so much, and that makes you think, like, what? And then processing things. But when you do that at the right maturity, surrounded by right material, people, trust, that vulnerability itself made me realize what a power there is within that, inside that. There is so much of understanding of your boundaries. So that's something that was a big surprise. There is another thing, but that I can't reveal. It has changed my life as well. Life-changing experience.
Amazing. Thanks, Muge. And finally, Deirdre.
Yeah, I think the most unexpected is the depth of relationships that we build in just a 6-week period for the SEP program, and folks I'm still now count as close friends. The relationships with faculty, the professors, and how I bring that into the professional environment. So that was very much unexpected. And then I agree with what Muge was just talking about in terms of what I learned from there. It was, the sort of learning about myself and taking the, the various frameworks and theory and practices that we talk about in the different classes, but really what that means to me, what that means to my leadership has absolutely been transformational.
Amazing. Thank you so much to all three of you. It has been such a privilege for me to talk to you all. My takeaways from the SEP program are vast, but if I touch on them briefly, and then I'm going to hand back to Angela, it was those similar conversations we had about humor, the importance of humor, the important, reflective conversations about happiness, things that used to be called soft skills that are actually such vital skills. I think also what I took away was that there were so many leaders in my cohort, Dimitri included, who had so much incredible success professionally already, but they were still willing to invest more in their personal and professional development. They were curious people, and I thought that was amazing. And then now there's this common thread that connects us all forever, not just our SEP 19 cohort, but all SEP cohorts. And we feel so connected to the GSB and the university as well. So it is a remarkable program. It was totally life-changing for me. But on this particular note, I want to thank you, the three of you, very much for having this conversation today. Thank you to Stanford for having me. Thank you, Angela. Back to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I would like to just thank you, awesome, wonderful panel. I am lucky to have had the opportunity to be a part of the program with all of you in a different capacity and in leading the program. So, but just it's incredible to hear your stories and are just, so thankful for everything that you have brought. We have up here on the screen a QR code. If you have interest in learning more about the program, specifically SEP, you can also reach out to the team at the information here, and we hopefully will get back to you. I know there were many, many questions that we weren't able to get to, but please reach out to us and we will do our best to try to answer those. So thank you all so much for joining today. We really appreciate your time, and thank you to the panel. Thank you all. Take care.